Money. It's been around for thousands of years in one form or another. In fact, according to economic historian David Graeber, historical records in ancient Mesopotamia around 3200 BC show a well-developed system of money and a complex credit system as well. So, naturally, most of us see money as a necessity and a sign of civilization, but not Peter Joseph. He sees capitalism as a failure and wants to return to a time before money and eliminate private property. Now, I spoke to Joseph, founder and leading light in the Zeitgeist movement, about his controversial view last week, and we heard the first part of that interview then, and it sparked a ton of commentary, which we love to hear always, and we want to show you the second part of our conversation with him now. Now, I started off by asking Peter to explain why he thinks our current economic model is doomed and what differentiates his view from Malthusianism. Here's what he had to say.
Well, Malthusianism is based, again, on that deep, dark view that there isn't enough to go around. Now, people have been saying this for pretty much millennia. I mean, there was actually BC historians, philosophers that were talking about resource depletion back then. So there's a fear attribute that's been occurring. Malthus, of course, said that there's, a geometric increase in population when more resources are provided, but yet resources increase arithmetically. So with that, you automatically assume that you can justify the billion people starving. But that is technically disproven because of the more with less ephemeralization. Here's a word that I suggest people look up, coined by brilliant engineer, social thinker R. Buckminster Fuller. Ephemeralization has to do with the fact that we, as we've progressed our technology, can do more and more and more with less and less and less. And again, this is one of the additive contradictions, or I should say the contradiction of the additive nature assumed by capitalism once again, that says we're going to produce more and more and more and more efficiency or more produce. That means we have to have more and more people and more employment. Exact opposite. Technological unemployment is an exact result of this exponential increase of information technology that's allowing us to do more and more with less and less, which is why the real true core of the unemployment crisis on this planet, especially in the West, is not the state interference or anything else. It's the fact that we're finding more cost efficiency with using machines that can run 24 hours a day in many cases, no plant shutdowns, no insurance and everything else. So I hope that makes sense. So the Malthusian premise is utterly outdated and completely wrong, by the way. I mean, poor populations reproduce much faster than wealthy populations. It has to do with education, and it has to do with a number of factors that I won't go into, but it's actually completely incorrect.
Peter, what is the doomsday scenario to this money-based economy, in your opinion?
Sure. Well, I think that there are about three nails in the coffin. There's the debt crisis, which is wholly hilarious if you look at it in abstraction. We have the S&P, for example, said that by 2040 we're going to have pretty much 60% of all countries insolvent. Actually, most countries today are already insolvent if you use traditional standards of credit ratings and agencies that you would apply to the individual. The United States has been insolvent for many decades. This debt, there's at least a couple $100 trillion in public and private debt in the world that is literally impossible to be paid back because it's about 10 to 20 times more than the actual money in circulation on the planet. So that's going to be hitting the, well, you know the old phrase, it's socialism for the rich and market correction and capitalism for the middle class and the poor. That also applies to countries. So the United States will continue to float into empire status along with the other first world nations with their excessive and incredible debt, while the other nations will be held subservient. The World Bank will come in, they will apply austerity, which basically makes them slaves eventually to the upper class of the countries, just like it happens in the person-to-person basis with third world labor and exploitation, sweatshop wages from Nike, for example, because the people in those areas don't have anything else, so they'll take 8 cents an hour. So the debt issue is a huge problem. Then there's the energy crisis. The demand for energy is going to double within the next, I think, 2 decades. We also have another billion people coming. We also have an immense water crisis, as I mentioned before. These things, if you want to see real social destabilization, let's not resolve any of these issues. If you want to see another world war, let's not resolve any of these issues. The core driver of major overall doomsday scenario situation like this will be the three nails in the coffin. The final one I forgot to mention is unemployment, which is related to technological development, and it's called the contradiction of capitalism by some social theorists. And this basically means that we want to use cost efficiency, we want to save money, we're going to keep applying mechanized labor, which is increasing exponentially, especially the service industry now, which is being quickly replaced by AI in many different ways and automated systems. And eventually you're going to have to keep moving people around the new sectors, and we're going to run out of sectors. You know, the great Luddite fantasy is they assume that there's a one-to-one correlation, that technology will create jobs as fast as it's replacing jobs. Absolute nonsense. The human brain cannot learn and adapt as quickly as our exponential increase in technology, and the profit motive will be, ironically, the thing that shuts this system down and reduces purchasing power due to mass global unemployment. And what does that mean? It means social destabilization once again. And the final thing I'll mention, of course, in concert with these three issues is the complete and utter environmental disregard. It was reported by a UN-affiliated agency in the late 90s, if I remember, no, 2002, that we need 27 more planets to meet demand by 2050. 27 more planets.
Wow.
If we were to continue the rates of consumption. So, and I will add one more thing because of the neurotic obsession with this American dream. Do you have any idea what would happen if the rest of the world actually achieved what the United States has with its incredible resource consumption and its incredible use of energy and everything else? If the rest of the world achieved that, which is what they're trying to do, which is what China's been trying to do, which is a complete ecological collapse in many ways, the entire system would continue to disintegrate into nothing as well. So I take this from a few different angles, but I'll stop there or I'll keep rambling because it's a very exciting subject to me, and I'm very concerned about the future of the planet.
Me as well, and I want, you kind of touched on this before, but I want to revisit it. Many people, they talk about technology creating greater income inequality in society, as we know. How would you deal with that problem in a non-monetary based society like you propose?
Well, I think a further description of what this new social system that the Zeitgeist movement is proposing would need to be explained, because inequality, it's a complex subject because what defines stratification? What is class? I mean, somebody who is a very low in the socioeconomic ladder, that's a janitor, say, at a school, might be the best softball player on his team in his hometown. So the class relationship and status comes in many different forms when it comes to human society. And the elimination, the creation of economic equality, meaning the ability to create an access society where people can have access to everything that they need, bypassing the hyper-acquisitive neuroses that we've conjured up to keep our consumption economy going, of course. You have to have sustainable values if you want to have a sustainable society. And I look at people that have large, huge, enormous mansions and 2 jets parked in the front lawn as a form of violence against the general population because it's unsustainable on the whole. But that's, of course, for another subject. So the core issue to me when it comes to stratification and class relationships is that if we really want democratic, democratic balance. Everyone in the world wants to think they're in a democracy and think that their voice is heard. They want equal participation in their society. If you really believe in that type of idea, then why not demand economic equality? Why not demand the fact that, yes, everyone should have all their basic needs met. Everyone should have access. We should create a new social order that actually builds upon the ability to create an access abundance, which has not been the case, I'm sorry to say, since before about 20 or 30 years ago. So this is a major paradigm shift, huge, massive. We are able to provide for the entire species to meet human needs and beyond without the need to compete and fight. And if there's anything that I would put forward out there is for people to really think about that idea as the great transition of thought, that we can take care of everybody. We can do it. And it's going to get better and better. And if we only accelerated it by not keeping the market system in its general inhibiting capacity to preserve efficiency, to preserve scarcity, which is what drives the economy, then we can elevate to this new level.
That was filmmaker and founder of the Zeitgeist movement, Peter Joseph.